All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Sadia Sherman, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's review session of the City Planning Commission. We are joined here today by Commissioner Benjamin, Commissioner Cerullo, Commissioner Crowell, Commissioner Dweck, Commissioner Gold is joining us remotely, Commissioner Kermani, Commissioner Marin, Commissioner Osorio. So before we get, and Commissioner Rampersad, who's joining us remotely as well. Before we get to our agenda today, I'd like to touch base on some recent city planning news. Last week, we were excited to release a draft version of the Fair Housing Growth Strategy, along with our partners at HPD. The City Council mandated report provides a clear-eyed assessment of the scale of New York City's overall housing needs and offers housing production targets for each community district. In doing so, it provides a comprehensive guiding vision for alleviating our housing shortage in a fair and equitable way. These same goals animate Mayor Mamdani's block-by-block housing plan, which commits the city to building 200,000 new affordable homes over the next decade, the largest housing commitment in New York City history. The Fair Housing Growth Strategy is an important document, but it's also a draft. And I highly encourage New Yorkers to review it, share your feedback, and help us shape the final version. You can learn more at nyc.gov/HPD. I'd also like to thank everyone who joined the Department of City Planning last week at our White Plains Road Neighborhood Plan workshop last week in the Bronx. I was heartened to see so many Bronxites invested in shaping the future of this corridor. Working alongside council members Kevin Riley and Eric Dinowitz and community members, we are developing a vision for this corridor with new housing, economic opportunities, improved infrastructure, enhanced public spaces, and more. There will be more opportunities to get involved this fall. For the latest updates, please visit nyc.gov/White Plains Road. Now let's turn to today's agenda. We'll start with the multi-site rezoning along Park Avenue in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. This would enable the construction of 5 buildings with nearly 400 homes, 100 of them income-restricted affordable, along with 5 schools for over 2,500 students. The sites are close to the B44, B54, B57 buses, and the G train at Flushing Avenue and Myrtle and Willoughby Avenues. For this item, we will receive a staff recommendation, pause our review session, and then open a special public meeting to vote on the Park Avenue rezoning. Then close the public meeting and continue our review session agenda. The Commission will next learn about 16525 Union Turnpike in Hillcrest, Queens. This mixed-use building would include nearly 90 new homes, around 25 of them permanently income-restricted affordable, as well as ground floor retail and community facility space. The site is located near St. John's University and several local and express bus lines. We'll also review a mixed-use proposal for 1721 Wharton Place in Cypress Hills, Brooklyn. This project would create nearly 75 new homes, over 20 of them permanently income-restricted affordable, and community facility space. The building would be near the Cypress Hills J train stop, the B13, and the Q56 buses in Highland Park. Staying in Brooklyn, we'll learn about a proposal for a mixed-use building in Midwood with around 230 homes, of which nearly 60 would be income-restricted affordable. Located at the corner of East 14th Street and Locust Avenue, close to the B9 bus and the Q train at Avenue M, the project would also include community facility space. Heading northeast, the Commission will learn about a proposed building enlargement at 460 Troutman Avenue in Bushwick, Brooklyn, near the L train at the Jefferson Avenue station. This proposal would use new zoning tools created through City of Yes for Economic Opportunity to transform an existing 1-story development into a 6-story facility with a mix of industrial and commercial space. From there, we'll review an authorization for 67 Vestry Street in Tribeca, Manhattan. This application would facilitate 2 accessory off-street parking spaces within an existing residential building. We'll also continue our discussion on a proposed modification to a general project plan for the Jacob Javits Center in Hudson Yards, Manhattan. This change would allow the facility to display digital and accessory signage. Finally, the Commission will review City Council modifications for 4703 108th Street in Corona, Queens, and 200 Kent Avenue in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The former would include nearly 120 new homes, 30 of them income-restricted affordable, along with ground floor retail and a public indoor soccer field. The latter conversation and expansion of an existing building, the latter is a conversation and expansion of an existing building to facilitate around 140 new homes, between 30 to 40 of them income-restricted affordable. I'd also like to acknowledge we've been joined by Vice Chair Knuckles. With that, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Planning Commission review session for Monday, August 24th, 2026. The time is 1:07 and a quorum is present. The first item is a future votes for consideration today. Staff have prepared reports on Park Avenue, Brooklyn rezoning. There is a memo in your materials and Joshua Vogel is here to present.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Just while we're waiting for the slides to come up, I just want to note that we shared a memo in response to some questions from the Commission over the weekend, in addition to earlier this month when we shared a memo from the applicant in response to some of the questions and commitments to mitigations. So the Department supports this application for a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment that would facilitate approximately 394,000 square feet of residential floor area, producing 391 housing units, including 101 permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH, as well as 60,000 square feet of commercial space and 234,000 square feet of community facility space, providing educational facilities for more than 2,500 students. The proposal responds to the area's substantial growth and evolving land use patterns, providing an opportunity to bring future development into greater alignment with the neighborhood's existing and emerging land use patterns. The proposed zoning recognizes the neighborhood's transition from a predominantly industrial area to a mixed-use neighborhood with growing residential and educational uses, while maintaining opportunities for existing industrial businesses to remain conforming. It also reflects the growing number of residential and educational uses currently non-conforming or permitted under BSA approval. The proposed higher density M14R7D zoning along Park Avenue appropriately reinforces the avenue's established role as a major mixed-use corridor, while the M14R61 zoning on the interior mid-blocks provides a more moderate scale of residential growth and the flexibility necessary to accommodate schools and other community facilities currently not permitted under the current M1 and M12 districts. Finally, the Department supports the commitments to address the environmental impacts associated with the proposed additional density, improvements to Taffy Playground, sidewalk widenings along Walworth Street and Flushing Avenue, and voluntary 5-foot setbacks at proposed school sites, which will help improve open space, pedestrian circulation, and student drop-off and pickup conditions. These measures, together with the continued coordination with the Department of Transportation and Parks, will help ensure the growth facilitated by the project is accompanied by appropriate investments in the surrounding public realm. The Department strongly encourages the applicant to continue discussions with DOT as this application progresses, to commit to additional safety measures and public realm improvements in response to the proposed growth of students walking in this area. Taken together, the proposed zoning, affordable housing, new educational facilities, and environmental mitigations provide a coordinated effort for accommodating the neighborhood's continued growth and land use patterns. Thanks, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now pause our review session and open our public hearing.
Good afternoon. This is the City Planning Commission special public meeting held remotely and in person in the CPC hearing room at 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Monday, August 24th, 2026, and I will now call the roll. Chair Sherman.
Present.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Present.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Crowell.
Present.
Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Commissioner Gold, remote.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kamani?
Here.
Commissioner Mann is absent. Commissioner Marin?
Here.
Commissioner Osorio?
Here.
Commissioner Ramprashad, remote?
Here.
A quorum is present. The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 4. Calendar numbers 1 and 2, Park Avenue, Brooklyn rezoning, Community District 3. Calendar number 1, C240218ZMK. Calendar number 2, N240219ZRK. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning Park Avenue, Brooklyn rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 1 and 2, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
While I'm still uncomfortable with the ownership by the LLC and with how that will tie the properties that are not under the direct control of those who are actually applying, and I'm not particularly comfortable with the decision to not move forward with some of the mitigations that would have mitigated some of the pedestrian impacts. I feel that this community deserves a chance to try and make this work, so I will be voting yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich. No. Commissioner Kamani. Commissioner Goodrich, are you on Zoom? No. Commissioner Kamani?
Yes.
Commissioner Marin?
No.
That was a no. Commissioner Osorio?
As I've expressed in certification, I'm concerned with the direct displacement here of 145 employees and 19 existing businesses. This is 15.7% of them in construction, manufacturing, wholesale, and transportation and warehousing combined. According to the city's industrial plan, the area is designated as a neighborhood industrial area. So I cannot support a proposal to rezone this area from manufacturing to R70M1, 4, and R6, 1, and 1, because I cannot support a mixed-use designation without any industrial use, even on first floors, particularly when there is direct displacement of industrial manufacturing companies involved. Building affordability in New York City is very much about protecting and expanding employment opportunities for working-class New Yorkers that depend on these jobs. But I also just want to take a minute to commend the Department of City Planning for coordinating mitigation strategies with the other agencies to address significant adverse impacts on traffic and pedestrians, although they're not fully mitigated. And there's still significant adverse impacts on open space. So I'm also concerned about the fact that we're leaving this pending in an area that has been designated as a disadvantaged community by the state's climate law. Thank you.
Commissioner Osorio, what is your vote? No. Commissioner Ramprashad?
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 1 and 2.
Hearing is closed. And we will reopen the public review session.
Okay. We'll close the public meeting, and the time is 1:15. And we'll go back to review session. Thank you, Chair. The second item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 8, and our presenter is Andrew Wasserman.
Chair, for the record, I'm recused on this matter.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a private rezoning application for 16525 Union Turnpike. This private application is located in the Hillcrest neighborhood of Queens, Community District 8, City Council District 24, represented by James Gennaro. The applicant, 16525 Union Turnpike LLC, is seeking a zoning map amendment to change an existing R32 district to an R6A C23 district. and a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate the development of a new 9-story mixed-use building with commercial and community facility space on the ground floor and residential units above. This new development would be approximately 82,400 square feet with a floor area ratio of 3.9. The building would contain about 87 dwelling units, of which 22 to 26 would be permanently income restricted through MIH options 1 and 2. Excuse me. This is an aerial view of the surrounding context. The project area, represented by the red dot near the center, is in the Hillcrest neighborhood of Queens. It's located beyond the greater transit zone, served by numerous bus lines along Union Turnpike and 164th Street that provide access to transit hubs such as downtown Flushing, downtown Jamaica, and the Kew Gardens Union Turnpike E and F station. There are also multiple express buses that provide direct service to Manhattan. The project area's primary frontage is on Union Turnpike, which is a major thoroughfare in eastern Queens, and it's also located near 164th Street, another major thoroughfare, as well as the Grand Central Parkway. The project is also located near St. John's University, Queens College, York College, and Lander College. The surrounding area primarily consists of 1 and 2 family houses, as well as 1 and 2-story commercial buildings along Union Turnpike and 164th Street. There's a 6-story multifamily residential building 1 block west of the project area at the corner of 164th Street and Union Turnpike. Here is a closer look at the site and the local context. The proposed rezoning area, outlined in yellow, is bounded by Union Turnpike to the south, 165th Street to the west, 166th Street to the east, and 1 and 2 family houses to the north. The development site consists of 3 lots. 2 are developed with 2 family houses, and the 3rd is developed with a single-story garage. The project area also includes 8 other lots to the east and west of the development site, which contain a mix of 1 and 2 family houses and a medical office. Also in this view are local commercial uses across 165th Street, consisting of a gas station and a fast food establishment. The proposed development site is outlined here in red and has approximately 21,100 square feet of lot area. This view facing southwest towards the corner of 166th Street, tongue twisters, all these numbers, 166th Street and Union Turnpike shows 3 attached 2-family homes that comprise the east side of the project area. This view of the project area and development site is facing northwest along Union Turnpike at that same intersection, and the development site is highlighted on the left side of the photo. This view facing north on Union Turnpike shows the 3 lots that comprise the development site. And this view facing northeast at the intersection of 165th Street and Union shows the non-applicant controlled lots at the western corner of the project area. The proposed actions would facilitate a new 9-story, approximately 82,400 square foot mixed-use building featuring approximately 9,300 square feet of first-floor commercial and community facility space. The applicant is proposing approximately 73,100 square feet of residential space, comprised of 87 dwelling units on the upper floors. Between 22 and 26 units would be permanently income restricted under MIH option 1 and 2. The applicant is proposing 38 parking spaces located in the cellar. The proposed ground floor plan indicates a future 12-foot curb cut on Union Turnpike leading to a ramp to the cellar parking garage, as well as the residential, commercial, and community facility entrances located along Union Turnpike. In order to facilitate the proposed project, the applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment to change an existing R32 district to an R6A C23 district. A change from an R32 to an R6A C23 district allows an increase in residential FAR from 1 to 3.9 and maximum building height from 35 to 95 feet with qualifying affordable housing. This change permits a commercial FAR of 2. This change would also reduce the amount of required accessory off-street parking from 100% per market rate dwelling unit to 50%. The applicant is also proposing a zoning text amendment to map MAH options 1 and 2, coterminous with the project area. The applicant proposes utilizing option 1 or 2 for the proposed development using 25 to 30% of residential floor area for between 22 and 26 income-restricted units at an average of 60 to 80% AMI. This application requires the preparation of a racial equity report because it would increase the residential floor area by at least 50,000 square feet. The current area median income in Briarwood, Fresh Meadows, and Hillcrest is $84,217, which is slightly lower than the borough median, but higher than the citywide median. The applicant proposes to include 22 to 26 income-restricted units across a range of, here we're showing, those 26 income-restricted units across a range of 60 to 100% AMI, with estimated monthly rents from $1,700 for a studio to $4,210 for a three-bedroom at estimated median incomes ranging from $68,000 for a one-person household to $175,000 for a five-person household. As of 2020, of the 157,986 residents within Queens Community District 8, 37% identify as Asian non-Hispanic, 12% identify as Black non-Hispanic, 18% identify as Hispanic or Latino, and 28% identify as white non-Hispanic. The remaining 5% identified as some other race or combination of races. Between 2010 and 2020, Queens Community District 8 saw a 29% increase in Asian non-Hispanic populations, a 2% decrease in Black non-Hispanic populations, a 15% increase in Hispanic or Latino populations of any race, and a 16% decrease in white non-Hispanic populations. In conclusion, the applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to facilitate the construction of a new 9-story mixed-use building with a total of approximately 87 dwelling units, of which between 22 and 26 would be permanently income restricted. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Benjamin?
Hi, thank you for that. A question, the 3 properties that are part of the development plot, are they occupied currently? 2 of them?
At the moment, I just spoke to the applicant about this. One of them is currently vacant. The other has 2 tenants that are currently on a month-to-month basis, they said.
And will they have any rights to move into the new building, or?
That's a very good question. I can check with the applicant. That wasn't mentioned when we discussed.
Okay, that would be.
And, sorry, Commissioner. Lucia Capuccio, Central Queens team lead. The applicant also told us that they would have a 90-day notice before construction begins, vacate notice, but we can, as Andrew said, we can follow up about if they'll have a right to return.
Since this is going to be self-financed and not financed through any of our housing programs that were in the report, how are we going to make sure that the housing, the income-restricted housing that we anticipate is in fact provided in the way that we see it here? Which is, the number, one of the things that makes this project attractive is the number of 2- and 3-bedroom apartments and family-sized apartments. So, What is the mechanism that we have to make sure in a zoning map amendment that the project that we're seeing is in fact the project that will happen?
That's a great question. I know at the moment, I know these are pretty early plans, so not sure about a specific mechanism, but I could definitely follow up.
No, it's a great question. I would say, for zoning map amendments, we are just approving the zoning, obviously. So we can't, what they end up developing may be different. We can't, guarantee that the unit mix that they'll arrive at is what they've presented, but we can have the applicant certainly speak to, the unit mix that they're thinking of, even though it's out of scope for this particular action. But I do know if they're providing MIH units, obviously they will have to work with HPD to make sure that those units also follow any market rate unit that's a 2-bedroom. They'll also have an MIH unit that's a 2-bedroom, et cetera. But we take your point. But yeah, we can't control what they end up, building, but we're just approving the R6A here. So, but they are committed to building those mixes at the time, and obviously when they meet with the board and the council member, I'm sure they'll have those conversations as well.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, I do have one.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair. What approximately is the tallest building or the building closest to the height proposed here in proximity to that site?
Go back just to the area map, just to visualize. So in that immediate vicinity, you could see towards the left side, there's in the yellow, that's a 6-story building. There are some taller buildings a little bit further to the west on Union Turnpike that go up to, I believe, they were 14 stories? Yep. There are 14 stories a little bit further west on Union Turnpike as well.
So that would be to my right?
Oh, sorry, to the left on this map, towards the quay.
Thank you.
To the west, yep.
Commissioner Benjamin?
One last question. In including those 3 lots that are adjacent to the development site, and the lots on the other side on 166, aren't we putting a lot of development pressure on those lots because they would be going from a 1 FAR to almost a 4?
That's a great question. So to the buildings on the east side or to the right on the map, those are relatively new. I believe those were built in 2005. So, I'm not sure if there would necessarily be pressure for such new buildings. That's a fair question elsewhere, but, those are privately owned, so it does depend on.
Well, these 3 were privately owned too.
That's true, yeah. That's a great point. But yeah.
Oh, no. So this was a qualifying action determination, but they did have to provide reasonable worst-case numbers. And as Andrew said, there was only, I think half of the lots were projected to develop based on, lot size. I don't know if it's worth going into the specific lots per se, but it was there would potentially be 2 more developments because there's, mixed ownership. So some of the lots are projected not to develop based on a lower lot size, and but to your point, some of them were projected that they could develop under this scenario, but there's also about 5 lots that are projected not to develop because of, Andrew said some of them were built in 2004 and 2005, and then the other lots are, single family homes.
Were these 3 lots in the development site owned by the same person?
Right now they are.
Right,
I'm not sure of the history, but we can ask that.
Yes, if you could get that for me, I'd appreciate it. I think that they were probably owned by different people, but were consolidated when the developer acquired the one that's vacant.
Right. That may be, the vacant lot has just a 1-story garage, a car garage on it, but it's mostly vacant. And then Andrew said one's vacant and one has the 2 tenants currently.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for those questions.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much.
And so this application is certified.
Thank you. The third item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 5, and our presenter is Rosalia Momut.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, Chairman, and Commissioners. This is an application by CCM Capital Group Corporation for a zoning map amendment from R5 to R6A and a zoning text amendment to map MIH in order to facilitate a 56,000 square feet, 7-story residential development containing 73 units, 21 of which would be income restricted and ground floor community facility space. The project area is in Cypress Hills, Community District 5 in the borough of Brooklyn. and is located at 17 through 21 Wharton Place, a dead-end street off of Crescent Street with Euclid Ave to the west. Crescent Street connects Jamaica Avenue to the north and Fulton Street to the south, two principal arterials in the neighborhood, and has the elevated J subway line running above. Cypress Hill Cemetery is directly to the north of Jamaica Avenue. Now we're changing orientation facing southwest. The project area is at the intersection of Wharton Place and Crescent Street. Wharton Place is 50 feet wide and includes one moving lane of traffic in each direction, providing access to residential properties along the south side of the roadway and loading access to commercial properties along the north side of the roadway. Crescent Street is 60 feet wide and includes one moving lane of traffic in each direction and curbside parking along the west side of the roadway. The project area includes the entire southern frontage on Wharton Place between Crescent Street to the east and Euclid Ave to the west, and a portion of the frontage along Crescent Street. The development site is located at the end of Wharton Place and is located across from the back of the Western Beef Supermarket. The project area consists of 10 tax lots. The development site consists of 3 of those lots. The project area is an R5 zoning district that has been in place since 1961. The immediate surrounding area to the east, west, and south is also mapped with an R5 zoning district. The area north of the project area with frontage along Jamaica Avenue is mapped M11. The current uses in the surrounding area include residential, commercial, and industrial uses. Residential uses seen on this map in yellow are a mix of 1- and 2-family homes and multifamily walk-ups. Industrial seen in purple include restaurant supply stores, gas stations, and auto service stations. Commercial uses include a supermarket, convenience stores, and restaurants. Community facilities in the surrounding area are seen in blue and include the Abraham Lincoln Elementary School located to the northeast of the project area. Numerous cemeteries are located to the north of Jamaica Avenue, including the 120-acre Cypress Hill Cemetery and the 34-acre Salem Field Cemetery. The area is well served by public transit. The J Train Cypress Hill Station is located approximately 1 block from the project area to the northeast. Both the B13 bus, which runs from Spring Creek to Wyckoff Hospital, and the Q56 bus, which runs from Broadway Junction to Jamaica, stop within half a block from the project area. Now we'll walk through some project views. In this view, we are facing southwest from the end of Wharton Place. The development site outlined here in red is Lot 72, 75, and 77. Lot 72 and 75 are both improved with 2-story, 2-family residential buildings, and Lot 77 is vacant. Moving east along Wharton Place, this view is of the rest of the project area along Wharton Place, terminating at Crescent Street. It contains 2 3-story semi-detached residential buildings. This view is of the frontage across the street from the project area along Wharton Place. This consists of loading bays for commercial and industrial businesses. Looking across the street from the project area, this is a view of the project area along Crescent Street facing northwest. The project area along Crescent Street consists of 2 to 3-story 2-family residential buildings. The proposed development would consist of a 7-story, 75-foot-tall mixed-use building with a total floor area of approximately 56,000 square feet, or 3.69 FAR. The building would consist of approximately 73 dwelling units, of which approximately 21 units would be permanently income restricted, pursuant to MIH. The building will include ground floor community facility space. No parking is proposed, as the required parking of 13 spaces is waived. The proposed development will include a 76-feet diameter fire apparatus turnaround on Wharton Place. This proposed turnaround was reviewed and approved by the FDNY under an LNL and by DOT. This is a view of the proposed development in relation to the surrounding area. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant first proposes a zoning map amendment to change the existing R5 district to an R6A. R5 zoning districts typically produce 3- and 4-story attached houses and small apartment houses and provide a transition between lower and higher density neighborhoods. The maximum FAR is 1.5 or 2.0 for qualifying residential sites. The maximum community facility FAR is 2.0. The maximum base height is 35 feet or 45 feet for QRS, and the maximum building height is 45 feet or 55 feet for QRS. Off-street parking is required for 35% of the standard dwelling units within the outer transit zone with a maximum waiver of 10 spaces. Parking is not required for QRS. Our 6A zoning districts are contextual residential districts that permit apartment buildings with a maximum residential FAR of 3.9 with qualifying affordable housing and a maximum community facility FAR of 3.0. The minimum base height is 40 feet, the maximum base height is 65 feet, and the maximum building height is 95 feet. In the outer transit zone, off-street parking is required for 25% of the building's standard dwelling units, but can be waived if the required number of spaces is under 15 spaces. The applicant also requests a zoning text amendment to amend Appendix F by establishing the project area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area with options 1 and 2. Option 1 requires that 25% of residential floor area must be income restricted for residents with incomes averaging 60% AMI, with a minimum of 10% of housing to be affordable at 40% AMI. Option 2 requires that 30% of residential floor area must be income restricted for residents with incomes averaging 80% AMI. Pursuant to Local Law 78 of 2021, this application requires a racial equity report on housing and opportunity because it would increase the permitted residential floor area by at least 50,000 square feet. The proposed development would provide new housing units, including new income-restricted units in a highly transit-accessible location. East New York and Cypress Hills have a lower median household income at $54,500 than borough and citywide average. From 2010 to 2024, Brooklyn CD5 experienced a 14% increase in housing units, while the population in the district grew by 10%. Much of the housing growth was in the East New York rezoning area, which is to the south of the project area. However, the immediate surrounding area around the project area has produced very few new housing units. In this figure, we can see that the population of CD5 is predominantly Black, non-Hispanic, with the percentage at 46%, which exceeds both the borough average at 27% and the city average at 20%. The Hispanic population at 37% is also higher than borough and citywide average. Figure 2 shows the percent change in race and ethnicity from 2010 to 2020. The largest growth was seen in the Asian non-Hispanic population, with a 64% growth compared to 43% borough-wide and 34% citywide. Hispanic Latino population increased the second largest with a 10% growth compared to a 4% borough-wide and 70% citywide. There was a slight 2% decrease in the Black non-Hispanic population compared to a 9% decrease borough-wide and a 5% decrease citywide. White non-Hispanic populations increased 3% in the area compared to the increase 8% borough-wide and no change citywide. In summary, this is a private application for a zoning map amendment from an R5 to an R6A zoning district and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a mixed-use building with 56,000 square feet of residential space. That would include 73 units, 21 of which would be income restricted, and 1,300 square feet of ground floor community facility space. Thank you. And I can take your questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Benjamin and Commissioner Goodrich.
I'm going to ask you the same question about whether the houses that are on this lot are occupied currently, and if they are, by how many units are occupied by how many persons?
So there are currently 5 residents in the existing buildings across the project area, across the development site. And the applicant has said that they are working to offer them alternative housing because they own other properties in the area and also are connected with other landlords in the area, and are also willing to offer them new units in the future development.
Okay, and if you could make sure the developer knows that we're interested in this and we'd like to hear more about it when we have the public hearing, I would appreciate that. Yes. Because if the sum total of our actions is that we're displacing one group of people in order to find some more people, I think we need to really look at the policy. And the second question I have is about the displacement. This is in highest displacement, this area, and to what do we attribute that?
I can go back to the displacement risk here.
Yes, it's in the highest displacement risk.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we've said that in this area generally, there's been more housing production than population increase. So to what do we attribute it, and who is being displaced?
Yeah, I can look into this and get back to you because I'm not exactly sure how the displacement risk is calculated, like which data sets they're drawing from. But yeah, we can get back to you on that.
Okay, I'd really appreciate that. It's a concern.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sure, we can share more then. I know I've brought up the East New York rezoning, and I mean, obviously this is capturing Cypress Hill as like it's capturing the whole community district, but we do know at least from the portion, and that's right over the J train line, I think, where you get into the East New York rezoning area, that's actually where we are seeing retention, growth of Black New Yorkers in particular. We're also seeing that we are building, but population is increasing, but you're not seeing that same level of displacement. This is a different geography, though, so we can certainly make sure to look at that data and give you an update for the bigger area. Thank you. Commissioner Goodrich.
I also wanted to know about this two residential homes. So these are homeowners, right?
No, they're renters.
But I guess my main question is they're renters, so obviously there's an owner of the property. So what's the background with that? Have they signed something to agree to this? Sorry. My question is, can we have a little bit of background we know that the renters will likely be displaced, but have the homeowners just agreed to have their property demolished? Like, what's the actual background with that?
We can speak to the applicant about it. I think the applicant might be the landowner here, but yeah, we'll.
Oh, I see. So our applicant is the owner of these homes, the 5 homes.
Yeah, I can check, but yeah, I think that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. The two of the questions that I wanted to ask were asked, so I'm not gonna build on that, but essentially, I just want to make sure that there is as much clarity in terms of what's the commitment to actually build something here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned, building on Commissioner Benjamin's question here, but also in the previous application, how recently we've seen properties flip out there, and all of a sudden, what's promised here in terms of affordable housing is not materialized, and especially here, since, there's existing housing, we need to be super careful for that. So anything that, in addition to what was asked, you can help us understand in terms of the level of commitment to actually build something here would be useful. And then if you can also please request whether we can learn a little bit more about the sustainability measures in the building, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your question, and I'll have the applicant speak to that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This application is certified.
Thank you.
The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 14, and our presenter is David Weisglass.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Here we go. All right, so this is the certification of the East 14th Street and Locust Avenue rezoning. This is an application by East 14 Realty Holdings, LLC, for a zoning map amendment to rezone an M11 and an R5 district to an R7A zoning district, and a zoning text amendment to map mandatory inclusionary housing options 1 and 2 over the project area. These actions would facilitate a new 9-story, approximately 170,100 square foot mixed-use building with ground floor community facility space and 229 dwelling units, 57 of which would be permanently income restricted per MIH. The project area is located in the Midwood neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 14 and falls in the district of City Council District 44, which is the district of Council Member Simcha Felder. I will also note that this project also falls within a neighborhood industrial area, or NIA, according to the Industrial Development Strategic Plan. Here you can see the project area and the development site within the surrounding context. The development site is seen outlined in pink here, and it's comprised of 2 tax lots and has a total area of approximately 33,965 square feet. These 2 lots, which are both currently zoned M11, were previously occupied by a 1-story auto repair establishment until approximately 2011. Since then, they've been used and are currently used as a surface parking lot for local businesses and residents. The remainder of the project area, which is outlined here in blue, includes Lot 29 on the same block as the development site, Lot 28 on the adjacent block 6732, and small portions of Lots 74 and 75 on Block 6732. Lot 29, which is directly adjacent to the development site and on the same block, is currently improved with a 6-story, approximately 56,000 square foot residential building containing 71 dwelling units, and it was constructed in 1931. Lot 28, which is just across East 13th Street from the development site, is a 6-story, approximately 52,000 square foot residential building with 59 dwelling units, also constructed in 1931. These buildings are currently non-complying as they fall generally within an R5 zoning district. The surrounding area is characterized by a mix of low-density residential development within the large R5 districts mapped to the north and west of the project area, as well as industrial uses to the east, and medium-density mixed residential and commercial or community facility buildings found to the south of the project area. Coney Island Avenue, a 100-foot wide street running north-south, and Avenue M, an 80-foot wide street running east-west, serve as major retail corridors and are characterized by 2- to 3-story community facilities, as well as larger commercial and mixed-use buildings with residences above retail. The surrounding area contains a number of community facilities, including the O'Hell Children's Home and Family Services Center, which is found just south of the project area, and the Blanche Kahn Family Health Center found just to the east. Edward R. Murrow High School is located to the east of the project area, just over the train tracks. Speaking of which, this area is very well served by transit. The MTA subway Q line, serving Coney Island and the Upper East Side, runs just 1 block east of the rezoning area, and you can see that in your screen here. The Avenue M stop on the Q line is located 1 block southeast to the rezoning area, and the Avenue J station just a bit out of view here to the north. The B line also runs on this track, but has no stops in the immediate area. The B68 bus line, which runs from Coney Island to Windsor Terrace, has stops along Coney Island Avenue, and the B9 bus, which runs from Bay Ridge to Kings Plaza, has stops along Avenue M and stops at the Avenue M subway station, which again serves the Q line. There are several open spaces in the area, including Midwood Field, which is used by Edward R. Murrow High School, and Colbert Playground, which is located just to the east of the school. Here you can see a land use map of the area, with the development site outlined in red and the project area outlined in black. You can see the large R5 areas to the north and west of the project area, and these are predominantly occupied by single and 2-family homes, as well as slightly more dense and mixed characters seen to the west along Coney Island Avenue and to the south along Avenue M. The project area is mapped R5 and M11, and the surrounding area also includes R5B and R7A districts. C23 commercial overlay districts are also found along Coney Island Avenue and Avenue M. M11 districts, mapped over the development site, permit light industrial uses such as woodworking shops, repair shops, commercial uses, and limited community facilities. However, no residences are permitted. The maximum FAR for industrial or commercial uses is 1.0, but the FAR is 2.4 for community facility uses. The maximum base height is 30 feet or 2 stories, whichever less, and total height is governed by a sky exposure plane. Parking is calculated based on floor area of certain uses, but may be waived if 15 or fewer spaces are required. R5 districts are non-contextual districts that often produce 3- and 4-story attached and small apartment houses and provide a transition between lower and higher density districts. The maximum FAR for standard lots is 1.5, but that number is 2.0 for qualifying residential sites. Buildings may reach a maximum base height of 35 feet and a maximum building height of 45 feet, with those numbers being increased to 45 feet and 55 feet, respectively, for qualifying residential sites. Parking is required for 35% of standard units within the outer transit zone, but may be waived if 10 or fewer spaces are required. R5B districts are contextual districts allowing a maximum FAR of 1.5 or 2.0 for qualifying residential sites. They permit a maximum height of 35 feet or 55 feet for qualifying residential sites. Parking is required for 25% of standard dwelling units, and none is required for qualifying affordable housing. C23 districts are commercial overlay districts mapped within residential districts along streets that serve local retail needs. The maximum commercial FAR is 1.0 when mapped over an R1 through R5 district, and 2.0 when mapped over a district that's R6 or higher. R7A districts are mapped heavily to the south of the project area, as seen here, and this is the district proposed for this project. R7A districts are medium-density contextual districts. Community facility uses are permitted up to 4.0 FAR, and the maximum residential FAR is also 4.0, but it increases to 5.01 for buildings with qualifying affordable housing. The maximum base height is 75 feet, and the maximum building height is 85 feet. But for buildings including affordable housing, the base height is actually 85 feet, and the maximum height is 115 feet. No front yards are required, but rear yards of 20 to 30 feet are required. Within the outer transit zone, which is where we're located here, parking is required for 15% of standard dwelling units, but can be waived if 15 or fewer spaces are required. No parking is required for income-restricted units. Here I'm going to show you a few pictures of the development site and the project area. So this here is a view of the project area looking northeast from the intersection of East 14th Street and Locust Avenue. You can see the development site is currently being used as a surface parking lot. Just to the west of the project area, which is at the left side of your screen here, is an out parcel with an existing residential building that is not proposed to be altered as a part of this application. There you go. Here's a view from the same point looking north along East 14th Street. Not only can you again see the development site on the left side of the screen, but on the right you can see the non-residential uses facilitated by the underlying M11 district. In the background, you can see the low-scale residential development consistent with the mapped R5 district to the north. Here's the same view from the same area, but now facing west along Avenue M, with the development site and the project area on the right side of your screen. To the left side of your screen is the O'Hell Children's Home and Family Services Center. And finally, this image actually doesn't include the development site itself, but I wanted to include it to show the two non-complying residential buildings that are included in the project area. These buildings, again, were both constructed in 1931, and they would be rezoned from R5 to R7A districts if this project is approved, but they're not proposed to be altered. The proposed building is a 9-story mixed-use development containing 170,143 square feet, including 156,262 square feet of residential space and 13,880 square feet of community facility space. This building would contain 229 dwelling units, of which 57 would be permanently income restricted per mandatory inclusionary housing regulations. Additionally, the building would include 5,218 square feet of outdoor recreation space and 1,584 square feet of interior recreation space. While approximately 26 parking spaces are required, 42 total spaces will be available in the cellar, along with 115 bicycle spaces. To facilitate this development, the applicant seeks a zoning map amendment from M11 and R5 districts to an R7A district, and a zoning text amendment to map MIH over the project area. Here you can see the zoning map amendment before and after maps with the L-shaped project area outlined in pink on both maps. On the left side of your screen, at the existing circumstance, you can see that the existing project area is split between the M11 district along East 14th Street and the R5 district mapped along Locust Avenue. Here's the table showing the differences between the zoning regulations of the existing M1 and R5 districts compared to the proposed R7A district. I went over these previously, so I'll just give you a chance to see the numbers here. And as you review, as noted previously, I'd like to remind us that the development site is currently zoned M11. So the R5 development regulations you see here in the middle column are not applicable to the development site today. The existing residential buildings in the project area are proposed to be rezoned from R5 to R7A, but again, are not proposed to be altered as a part of the application. Additionally, the applicant seeks to map an MIH area by altering Appendix F of the zoning resolution. Option 1 requires 25% of units to be affordable at an average of 60% of AMI, whereas Option 2 requires 30% of units to be affordable at an average of 80% of AMI. The applicant here intends to pursue Option 1, providing 57 permanently income-restricted units. This application requires a racial equity report on housing and opportunity under Local Law 78 of 2021. Here you can see that the average annual median household income in the area is roughly $79,256, which is very similar to the numbers for Brooklyn and New York as a whole. White non-Hispanic residents represent a plurality in the area at 37%, with Black non-Hispanic residents making up 29% of the area, Hispanic and Latino residents at 15%, and Asian non-Hispanic residents at 13%. This pattern is relatively similar to the demographic makeup as Brooklyn as a whole, which you could see in the middle here. However, you could see that between 2010 and 2020, the area grew very modestly at only 2% growth. Similar to Brooklyn and New York as a whole, the bulk of that growth has been due to Asian non-Hispanic immigration, as well as a much smaller amount of white non-Hispanic residents moving into the area. The area has lost a significant amount of Black and Hispanic population since 2010. This is more extreme than the trend that you see in Brooklyn and New York in the case of Black residents, where Brooklyn and New York has lost Black residents as well. And it actually is a diversion from trends found in Brooklyn, New York in the case of Hispanic residents, which you could see here. To conclude, the applicant is proposing a 9-story mixed residential and community facility building. And for those, the actions to facilitate that would be a zoning map amendment to change an M11 district, an R5 district to an R7A zoning district, as well as a zoning text amendment to map an MIH area coterminous with the rezoning area. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Commissioner Benjamin, Commissioner Goodridge.
Thank you for the presentation. That was really complete, except what conclusions do you draw about the outmigration of Black and Hispanic residents and whether this particular project will enhance that, will not affect it at all, or how will it be affected, that outmigration?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for the applicant and what they're purporting necessarily, but in terms of what we see in the area, I mean, you know, the numbers do
speak for themselves.
Yeah, they kind of do speak for themselves, absolutely. I mean, in terms of conclusions drawn, I want to be wary a little bit in that, you know, as we know, the RER is simply showing, you know, some correlations. But when it comes to this project, I mean, we're, you know, supportive of obviously providing the required affordable housing, which we think can stem some of those issues. But I guess I don't want to speak too much past that.
Required affordable housing only at this point has a 20% requirement for community, which is going down as the years progress. So that's not really a robust answer also because the area is gaining in Asian and white residents. They're included in that 20% also. So I'm not sure that the affordable housing is really the answer to how to deal with the displacement and whether this action, how this action would affect that.
Yeah, I mean, your point is well taken. I don't want to speak too much more on the RER and that it's simply kind of showing what the data is there. In terms of what the project does for the area. The applicants kind of put forward their case in the racial equity report of kind of what I guess goals of the our reports it believes that it can serve, that the applicant believes it can serve. I don't want to kind of speak for them in terms of what they believe the project would do in terms of stemming some of that displacement.
Is it possible to recommend to the developer that they use, in terms of tenant selection, that they use certain nonprofits that might be more diverse and might encourage applicant pool that would represent more of the people who are being displaced?
I don't see why not. And so we'll certainly, I mean, we are always recommending that, you know, they use robust outreach, you know, opportunities, and particularly for reasons such as those. And so we'll continue to do so. And I'll let the applicant kind of speak to that a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Goodrich?
Sarah,
Here we go.
I don't know.
So no, I'm fine. Okay, before I get to my question, I was going, let me just quickly raise in response to Commissioner Benjamin's question. There was, there used to be a percentage of community, you know, like slots for the community, and there was a whole lawsuit, unfortunately, that, well, some people see it as fortunately, but that stopped that, and so calling it hyper-segregation, and so and I suspect that perhaps the applicant might have some limitations on that because of that lawsuit.
Well, you're right. It used to be that it was, and we had a waiver from HUD that allowed us to have a 50% community preference. Once that lawsuit commenced, we went down in the final settlement to 20% until 2029.
Not 100% sure. I would need to check on that.
But there's a period of time, do you know, when it went down to 20%, and then it goes down to 15%.
Yeah, so I guess what, you know, I suspect, unfortunately, that in trying to make a neighborhood more diverse, that it'll be a little bit difficult. You know, one of the ways is pulling people from the community, making sure, but because of that lawsuit, I suspect that it might be a bit difficult for an applicant, right?
Right, which is why I think it's important that we have the most robust organizations who have the widest outreach.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we shouldn't make neighborhoods diverse.
Right.
Just pointing out that, unfortunately, because of that lawsuit, I suspect that it might be, it might be a bit difficult. My question was about the community board. I don't remember what the community board ruled on this or voted on this.
Well, they hadn't. This is a certification.
Oh, okay, well, perfect. Well, that. You know, I had another question, but I think I'll just save. That was about the parking, but you know what? I think I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Osorio, Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. I have a couple questions. One question, just building on Commissioner Benjamin's question, you know, is also I'm wondering how the discrepancy of the local median household income across racial categories was used or analyzed in terms of the proposed affordability strategy here. And so I'm wondering if you can say more about that. Do you mind repeating that? There's a big discrepancy across racial groups in terms of the median household income, and yet, you know, MIH forces us to think about everything as, you know, in one way. And so I'm wondering if this has come up in your conversations with the applicant.
In terms of how their makeup of the units and the pricing relates to...
In the context, yes, particularly in the context of, you know, displacement here.
It hasn't come up much, to be quite frank with you. I mean, the applicant has submitted they're complying with MIH. They've, spoken more about it again in the RER, where they kind of go into more, detail about the goals that they believe that they're serving in the Where We Live report. But I don't want to, speak too much for the applicant on that area.
Thank you for that. If you can bring it up, I would appreciate it so that we can have a conversation with the applicant in terms of, again, to Commissioner Benjamin's question, really, how is the applicant responding to what seems to be a historic displacement of specific racial groups, or resulted in displacement of specific racial groups. The other question that I had was, I was wondering if you can say more about the land use rationale that landed in the R7A versus, let's say, a more mixed approach. Number one. Number two, if you can say a little, or along the same lines, whether you can explain the discussion in terms of the boundaries. Let me explain why I'm asking this. So, number one, I'm just interested in hearing, why it would be clear if, it is a very clear kind of like decision to go for a residential designation here, but I'm wondering, whether it came up as to whether retaining some light industrial here was possible, number one. Number two, as it relates to the boundaries, I'm just curious, why you didn't include what's on the other side of the street across 14th Street. Thinking that this, again, I would suggest more along the lines of a mixed-use approach could actually, really stabilize not just this block, but the other block as well. Thinking about, the type of urban design that is being proposed along Locust, which seems like an interesting opportunity.
Sure. Yes, I'll take one at a time here. In terms of the district itself, which I believe was part of your question there.
Yep.
So the R7A district, the existing development site is not occupied by, a structure. It's a parking lot right now. Right. And so in terms of retaining existing manufacturing use, there's none on the site. Right. In terms of retaining existing flexibility for manufacturing, your point is certainly well taken. And actually, I think that plays into the second part of your question, which is why not take the rest of the area or maybe look across the street as well. Well, there's an M11 there that does have some more industrial uses, actually. I think if we go to the land use map, we can kind of see that a little bit more, where kind of community facility, but still you see a little bit of that purple there, right, on the east side across East 14th Street. And so I think we didn't want to maybe go a little bit too far this time and look at that area across the street and say, oh, well, this, would be an appropriate designation as an X or Y, whereas it already kind of has a little bit of a character there, and maybe we thought for a better day, if we could take a more, intense look at that, whereas the development site itself is, been locked in kind of an underutilized situation for quite a while, and then those adjacent out parcels would be made more compliant in the argument.
Oh, I get it. I think that, legalizing non-conforming residential uses makes sense. This is a vacant site. To your point, makes sense. It's just that you could have a larger impact, I think.
Certainly. I think we wanted to be a little bit careful in this, and maybe.
I understand why.
What part?
Why? What draw you to that? Because if you were saying that the industrial manufacturing uses across the street are a strong neighborhood character, then I have to go back and understand, what's happening across the street. But it sounds to me that, these two, blocks could work together as in a mixed-use approach. And I'm just trying to understand why you decided not to.
Certainly. And it's not that we don't appreciate that, outlook. We would like, all of our social blocks to really have that kind of cohesion, right, if it's appropriate. We just weren't necessarily sure if today is that time to do so necessarily, right? I think what we saw in the development site that's before us is a little bit more clarity, right? To our point, it's, not vacant, but it's a surface parking lot now, and it's been like that for 2011, putting those buildings into, more conformity. We've spoken about that. When you go across the street, it's a little bit more mixed. And that's not to say that the industrial uses there define it as a strong industrial center. It's a neighborhood industrial area for a reason and not a, primary or secondary. But then that kind of introduces the question, right? If we believe that a residential district over the development site is appropriate, which, given kind of the surrounding area could be, and the neighborhood industrial areas kind of call that it could be appropriate in these areas, and we believe it to be the case, then that also looks across the street and says, well, is that appropriate for residential? Maybe, maybe not, right? There's an existing kind of community facilities there, there's manufacturing uses, and so I think we would certainly be open in the future to looking at that and saying, oh, well, maybe an R7A there makes sense. Maybe something else makes sense if an applicant were to bring it forward. But I think we just weren't sure if that was the right time to do that now.
Thank you for your response. I appreciate it, and I think that this is an interesting discussion to have. I certainly think this could be an opportunity to frame a little more clearer criteria in terms of when, MX makes sense, when we should just be really thinking about residential. And I would welcome, an opportunity to really dive into that.
We're happy to do so. And again, to reiterate, which I know we all know, but it is important to reiterate, is the applicant comes forward with their boundaries, right?
But I think that we're also, the only part that I would suggest maybe kind of like reconsidering is that we sort of like make these decisions based on whether there's a market or not. We should be providing guidance, especially in terms of neighborhood industrial areas, which we're framing as transitional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're still providing guidance. I apologize. I don't want to get lost in the conversation a little bit here. I mean, we're very much still providing guidance, but the applicant didn't really bring up across the street, to my understanding. And when we look at a project area such as this, I mean, certainly that could be included. That would, include kind of another look at what is appropriate across the street. And yes, while there's a social block opportunity there for sure. That's something that we, look forward to looking at in the future as well.
Yeah.
We just didn't feel that it was appropriate at this time to make that decision and kind of say to the applicant, we should really look across the street and have it all in one right now.
No, look, I appreciate your response, and again, look forward to engaging in this, as much as possible later, particularly to really think about the longer term implications of this and to think as comprehensively as possible beyond the block.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marin?
Thank you. Has the applicant provided anything further than slide 15 regarding the unit sizes, associated rents, and AMIs?
No, not any more than...
That would be helpful if they could, please.
Okay, unit sizes?
Unit sizes, AMI, associated MIs, and rents.
Well, you have...
It's a general, I think. If anyone specifically that they can provide that.
Okay, surely. I can request that from the applicant.
Great, thank you. And I will note, I know Commissioner Benjamin, in a previous session, we offered to take a further look at the racial equity reports, which we are doing, to just also identify how they can be more useful to the Commission as we make our decisions. I will note, at the beginning of today's session, I also shared an update on the city's fair housing framework, which was released last week and which is open for the public to share feedback on. To your question about displacement, right, we know that many New Yorkers, particularly Black and Latino New Yorkers, housing insecure New Yorkers, low-income New Yorkers are experiencing displacement, particularly because of affordability, particularly because we have a once-in-a-generation scarce housing market, but also things like discrimination, right, which are difficult sometimes to identify in markets that are tight, as we have right now in New York City. And so I would also encourage folks, the public, as well as members of the Commission, to share feedback with the city as we finalize that plan. The goal is to build strategies that are focused on structural impediments, right, like restrictive zoning and continuing that work. But there's also some programmatic recommendations, even things that you raised, such as making sure we have more credible partners in communities who are helping with lease up, for instance. I think those are exactly the kind of recommendations that will help make sure it's strong. So thank you.
I really appreciate your moving ahead with this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This application certified.
Thank you. The fifth item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map amendment in Brooklyn Community District 4, and our presenter is Kyra Cuevas.
Hello, good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Today, I will be sharing the certification presentation for 460 Troutman Street rezoning. This is a private application by Aaron's Manufacturing Corporation to facilitate the expansion of an existing one-story manufacturing building to a six-story, approximately 93,000 square foot manufacturing building with accessory office uses. The applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M14A zoning district. The project is located within Community District 4 in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn and is within Council Member Jennifer Gutierrez's district. The project area is located within the western section of Bushwick, with Ridgewood to the north and East Bushwick to the east, Bedford-Stuyvesant to the south, and East Williamsburg to the west. The project area and development site are on the east side of Troutman Street, a 60-foot wide street between Cypress Avenue to the north and St. Nicholas to the south. St. Nicholas Avenue, to the south, both 70-foot wide streets. The project area is in close proximity to several transit options, such as the Jefferson L train station, a 5-minute walk from the site, which connects residents to Canarsie and Union Square, Manhattan. And the area is served by 2 bus lines, including the B57, which connects riders from Maspeth to Red Hook, and the B38, which connect riders from downtown Brooklyn to Ridgewood. The built context in the surrounding area includes 4-story loft-style buildings along Troutman Street, approximately 50 feet tall, between Cypress Avenue and St. Nicholas Avenue. The surrounding area features a mix of uses at a medium density, with predominantly residential uses to the east and industrial and commercial uses to the west. To the east, residential buildings range from 2 to 6 stories and include a mix of row homes, multifamily walk-ups, and loft conversions. Commercial uses include local retail such as bars, delis, restaurants, and clothing stores. To the west, industrial uses include production space, light industrial manufacturers, and warehousing/distribution. The project area is located within an M11 zoning district. M11 districts are low-density industrial districts that permit a variety of light manufacturing, repair shops, surface and storage facilities, and other uses, including laboratories, offices, art galleries, theaters, assembly spaces, and studios. Industrial buildings have a maximum FAR of 1.0 and a maximum height of 35 feet. M31 districts are high-density industrial districts that permit for a variety of manufacturing uses with higher performance standards and a maximum FAR of 2.0 and height ranging from 65 feet to 81 feet. The immediate surrounding area includes a range of low residential zoning districts with R4 to the north, R6 to the east, and higher density industrial districts with an M3-1 zoning district further west of Flushing Avenue. Open spaces include approximately the 7-acre Maria Hernandez Park, a half-mile south of the project area, the 5-acre Grover Cleveland High School athletic field, and the 1-acre Star Playground. The project area was included within the North Brooklyn Industry and Innovation Plan that was released in 2018. The plan designated the project area as a growth district, which is intended to support the growth of creative and tech-driven jobs in office space and industrial sectors near transit. On the right-hand side, you'll see that a snapshot of the department's citywide plan, the New York City Industry Plan, that took a comprehensive look at the industrial uses throughout all 5 boroughs and identified areas for primary, secondary, and neighborhood industrial areas. This site was designated as a neighborhood industrial area given its proximity to residential uses on the east side of Star Street and the prevalence of the aforementioned residential uses on the southern end of the block and west of Troutman Street. The project area is comprised along 3 lots, all of which share frontage along Troutman Street and one of which shares frontage along Cypress Avenue, the street that serves as the border between the boroughs of Queens and Brooklyn. The development site is situated in the middle of the 3 lots with 280 feet of frontage along Troutman Street. This is a view of the project area looking southwest from across the borough along Cypress Avenue. The magenta is the proposed development site, and the mint green outline shows the project area boundary. The portion of the project area that is not included in the project development site is not applicant-owned and is currently used as open storage yard surrounded by corrugated metal fencing. That's what you see in the corner there. And across Troutman Street from the project area is a 4-story loft building that was converted in 2004 from a manufacturing warehouse buildings for residences for artists. Here is a closer look at the development site. Looking north at Troutman Street towards Cypress Avenue, the development site is currently improved by a single-story building which is utilized for manufacturing of leather products, which include belts and suspenders by the applicant, who intends to expand both this building and their business as part of the proposed development. On the left-hand side is one of the 2 4-story multifamily converted loft buildings. This image shows a view looking east along Troutman Avenue and includes the development site and part of Lot 8. Lot 8 is the southernmost part of the project area and is not the development site. It is an L-shaped lot that contains industrial and manufacturing uses. Now, crossing the street, we are looking directly at the development site, which is Lot 12, and there are 3 existing loading docks and 2 existing curb cuts. One is large and one is smaller. This is a view of the proposed development, where we are looking southeast along Troutman Street. The development site is currently home to Aaron's Manufacturing Company, which currently operates an approximately 19,000 square foot business. The applicant proposes a development that would vertically enlarge the existing 1-story building to provide a total of 93,000 square feet. The building would be approximately 94 feet tall with a 7-foot setback along Troutman Street at the 6th floor. The first floor would contain 17-foot floor-to-ceiling heights, and the remaining floors would contain 15-foot floor-to-ceiling heights. The applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment from an M11 zoning district to an M14A district to facilitate the construction of the proposed development. The proposed M14A district has the same use regulations of the existing M11 district and would serve to increase the permitted density from an FAR of 1.0 to 5.0 while eliminating off-street parking requirements. M14A districts are medium-density contextual districts that permit a variety of commercial, light industrial, and manufacturing uses with a maximum FAR 5.0, subject to performance standards. Buildings on lots less than 20,000 square feet have a maximum base height of 125 feet and a maximum building height of 155 feet. In summary, the applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment to facilitate the expansion of a 6-story industrial use building at 460 Troutman Street. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. I had a couple questions. First of all, this is a very exciting project. I think your presentation was really clear in terms of the proposal and the existing conditions. I guess, one thing that I'm asking myself is, how does this fit within sort of like the larger neighborhood framework? On one end, to understand, how can we maximize the public benefits of this in a neighborhood industrial area that, is fronting, so like it's outside of the business improvement, business industrial zone, and it's kind of like can serve as a sort of like as a buffer. And so, here I am trying to be fair with a proposal that is expanding industrial development to think, creatively about, how does this represent and how can this be useful as we think about neighborhood industrial areas or designated neighborhood industrial areas into the future. So So the quick question is, do you have any updates in terms of where the Flushing corridor study is at, and to what extent we can draw on any work that you've done in that regard? I'm assuming that that study is still in the same place, which to be fair, I just want to encourage the department to use as much as possible or build as much as possible on the Brooklyn Comprehensive Plan to see how can the research that has already been done can be adjusted to understand how this proposal fits into the larger neighborhood framework. The reason why I say this is because as with the previous proposal, I'm a little concerned in terms of the actual boundaries here, and just really understanding how can we maximize the impact of these rezonings going forward. So I'm wondering if there's anything you can share at this point with this. If not, I just wanted to ask about or suggest that when we see this again, if we can have a little bit more information on the sustainability measures. I read some interesting stuff about solar panels, but I would like to understand, from a comprehensive point of view, what are all of those energy efficiency opportunities here, opportunities for renewables, and given the specific uses that are being proposed, whether there are opportunities for really closed loop activities or strategies here.
Great. Really appreciate all of your thoughtful questions. So I'm going to answer the first one initially. So you had asked about a neighborhood framework, and what I'm showing you is a framework that our department released in 2018. I just want to note that this site is actually outside of the bounds of that framework.
Yes.
However, there is some continuity east of Star Street. So you have an M3, which is a modest density manufacturing, and you have an R7 as well further south. So just letting you know that is responsive. And then going back to one of those slides I had shown earlier about the context within the neighborhood, the New York City Industrial Plan. So again, we'll state that this proposal is responsive to the NIA designation because of the residential and industrial use mixed characteristics. Especially, as I was mentioning, there are some loft buildings west of this site. There's some R4 low-density housing units north of the site. But then you'll see across diagonally, actually, from this site, it's a PIA. So there is a combination of different characteristics. So do hear you in terms of how this may respond to future plans and plans that we released as a city last year, but also want to, again, remind you that this is also responding to our designation from our 2018 North Brooklyn Industry and Innovation Plan as a growth district. So at least want to paint that picture. We can get back to you about the comprehensive plan, but definitely hear you and think that's a great suggestion. For the boundaries, that is something that the applicant had come up with when we received the application. So that is something that they can also respond to. When it comes to more information on sustainable measures, really appreciate that question. We'll get back to the applicant team about that. And the Flushing Avenue corridor study, I will admit I'm not too familiar with that, but can pass it to Lucia if she has more information.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. In terms of, I think your statement about the Flushing Avenue plan is correct. We don't have an update at this time. I will note that this is actually outside of that area, and heard on neighborhood industrial areas and the general designation being incredibly flexible when it comes to different areas throughout the city, and this site being, programmatic. There's a programmatic element with the applicant proposing to expand their business and the flexibility of the growth districts when it comes to, the M1A districts as a part of that. So heard you on that. And of course, to Kyra's point, can ask about the follow-up questions.
Thank you both. And just to clarify, the reason why I'm asking, I agree with most of what you said, but 99.9%. The reason why, the only thing I want to clarify is that the reason why I bring up the boundaries in the context of, comprehensive planning for neighborhood industrial areas as designated by the plan or building on previous, plans by the department, is So I think it's time, given the changes since then, but specifically building on the industrial plan, to think about creatively how do we partner with private applicants to have a larger impact. And so I'm excited about this proposal. I'm thinking about, what could be the public benefits in really thinking about, number one, the criteria through which we approach the neighborhood industrial areas, which, we keep sort of like thinking as potential mixed use, interventions, but we never really sort of like flesh out or have any control over whether they're going to actually have light industrial. Here we have an insignificant investment in growing industrial, development. How can we build on that? And so what I'm just saying is that I'm just excited and would welcome the opportunity to think creatively about how do we build on the existing research that we have, understanding and the constraints that the department may have in terms of doing more. The reason why I bring the Flushing Avenue corridor is because I think they go together. They may be sort of like slightly apart, but I think that this industrial sort of like ecosystem is actually very much connected. Thank you.
Understood.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. Any other additional questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is proposed as an enlargement of obviously of the building to expand business in this existing building. So I'd like to know, if you know, the number of existing jobs and what would be the additional jobs accommodated by this expansion.
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. So the business currently employs 20 staff members, but when it comes to additional jobs, we can defer to the applicant team.
Thank you. And what is manufactured here?
Leather belts.
Leather belts. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dweck?
Thank you. Do you know if the applicant will be taking advantage of any of the IDA benefits for the expansion?
That we can ask about. Thank you.
And I believe the applicant has noted that they currently use IDA benefits, but we can ask them on what their future programmatic needs are.
Thank you, because that would lock them into a job retention agreement, so that would be very beneficial.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Hearing no further questions, thank you. This application is certified.
Thank you, Chair. The sixth item on our agenda is a post-referral review of a non-ULURP zoning authorization in Manhattan Community District 1, and our presenter is Rain Rio.
Good afternoon, Chair Sherman and Commissioner. Good afternoon. How are you? Yep. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a ZR 13442 authorization for 2 accessory off-street parking spaces at 67 Vestry Street in Manhattan Community District 1. The existing building has 17 residential units and no authorized parking, and the proposal is below the 3-space residential cap calculated under Manhattan Core parking rules. The site is in northern Tribeca on Vestry Street near West Street at the western edge of the block. Hudson River Park is located across West Street to the west. The surrounding land use context is mixed with residential, commercial, converted former industrial, and mixed-use buildings. Vestry Street itself is a short one-way eastbound local street, so this frontage acts as a local access corridor. The site is in a C6 3A zoning district and within the Manhattan Core parking regulations, and that's why the application is before the Commission under ZR 13442 this afternoon. So the building is a 13-story, 17-unit residential building with no authorized parking. And the proposed two-space parking facility would be located in the existing building's former loading bay area. So the access point is tied to a frontage with existing vehicular and service history. This image here in 2013 shows the building before its most recent 2022 renovation, when the Vestry Street frontage still reflected its former loading function. The proposed parking area is tied to that former loading bay portion of the building that we can see here. So the application, as mentioned, would allow 2 accessory off-street parking spaces within the existing building, and this is a photo showing that former loading bay area today. Section 13442 allows the City Planning Commission to authorize accessory parking for certain existing buildings in the Manhattan core that were developed without parking. For 67 Vestry, the residential parking limit is 20% of the 17 dwelling units, which produces a maximum of 3 spaces, and this application is for 2 spaces, so it's within that limit. As a reminder, the City Planning Commission must also make 4 findings as part of the Manhattan Core parking rules. They address pedestrian and vehicle conflicts, street operations, congestion and pedestrian flow, and streetscape character. So I'll briefly walk through the project information relevant to those findings. Access and safety features. So vehicles would approach eastbound on Vestry Street. They would turn south across the 22-foot curb cut into the garage and then exit in the reverse direction before continuing east. The application identifies a vertical door, warning alarm, mirrors, a stop sign, and a speed bump to manage the limited vehicle movements associated with the 2 spaces. The application also includes 2 Department of Buildings DOB determinations related to the proposed parking layout. One addresses the curb cut location, and the other addresses the reduced parking area size. Community Board 1. Community Board 1 recommended approval with conditions by a vote of 37 in favor, 2 opposed, and 2 abstaining. The conditions focus on keeping the spaces accessory to residents, maintaining the proposed safety features, minimizing curb and sidewalk conflicts, and also they made a broader recommendation, which is the bullet on the bottom there, that the City Planning Commission track Section 13442 approvals annually. So to summarize, the application is for 2 accessory parking spaces within the applicable 3-space limit. And just as a reminder, the Commission would consider the 4 Section 13442 findings that we reviewed. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I was just wondering if you could talk a bit about why there is a need for the 2 parking spaces.
Yeah, great question. In terms of why there is a need, I think maybe that would be best addressed by the applicant, but they could certainly follow up in a memo before the September 9th vote. There are 17 units, right? And they've proposed 2 accessory parking spaces, which are, I guess, within the zoning resolution. That's what they've submitted. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Cerullo?
I would just add that request for follow-up include whether or not they know who these spots are for. I mean, there are 2 spots. And we talk about, for findings, vehicles coming in and out. I mean, this is not a parking lot. It's 2 spots in the building. So I don't, how is it going to work? There are 17 units. I mean, how many units are in the building, did you say? 17.
is it 2 spots open for people to come and go, to drop off things and go, or are they assigned? And do they know? Just, I'm really for curiosity, if nothing else, about how 2 spots in this building will actually operate and how that applies to the findings we need to make in terms of what's happening on the street and the sidewalk. I have no objection to the application, but now I'm just curious as to how it's all going to work.
Of course, and my understanding is that they would be signed, and as part of the application materials, there was an analysis done about how many vehicles would be moving every day, and they estimated between 2 and 4 vehicle movements a day at most. So pretty minimal. I believe it would be signed to one or two of the units, but I can double check. Of course.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, so this will be scheduled for a vote at a future public meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The 7th item on our agenda is a proposal to amend a general project plan in Manhattan Community District 4. There was a draft letter in your materials.
So I'd like to, sorry, my mic is not on. I'd like to request a vote by assent to send our, are you presenting first?
I'm just on hand for questions.
Okay, well, let me open up the floor for questions first. Commissioner Benjamin?
Just one quick question. There were a number of points made in the draft letter from the chair. Has the agency agreed to any of them, particularly with respect to the signage on 34th Street, or are they just saying, oh, interesting?
So there was an initial response back to our feedback, and I think for the signage on 34th Street, there was still an intention to move forward, but I don't know if we've received any additional updates since that.
No, we haven't received any further communication, but, I would imagine once the final letter is sent, there may be some response after that.
And so they didn't respond either to the issue of how much illumination? Okay.
They gave a response. It was not necessarily, to our preliminary
Right,
feedback, it wasn't necessarily
saying,
favorable, yeah.
Okay.
Did you have further questions, Commissioner?
No, that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to thank you for incorporating some of the language that we recommended on, heat impacts, energy efficiency, and renewables. Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
And thank you for all the work in our Manhattan office for thoughtful review and feedback. So I'd like to request a vote by assent to send a letter to ESDC. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. We move forward with sending the letter.
Thank you. The 8th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning text amendment in Staten Island Community District 3, and our presenter is Kari Bailey.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Sherman. I am here to present the Special Salt Richmond Development District, or SRD, Designated Open Space DOS text amendment, which was certified on June 1st and is now back for pre-hearing. This is a public application by the New York City Department of City Planning seeking a zoning text amendment to modify DOS boundaries at 3 sites within SRD. Each of them are listed on the screen here from left to right. Site 1 is 181 Bayview Avenue. Site 2 is 381 Arbutus Avenue. And Site 3 is a group of zoning lots along Nottis Avenue. This proposed text amendment is a follow-up from the South Richmond Amendment of 2023, known as Scissor, which provided zoning relief for small properties. And this proposed action would align with those goals and the special district by balancing development with natural feature preservation. This is the first DOS site, 181 Bayview Avenue, which is an interior zoning lot located at the intersection of Bayview Avenue and Excelsior Avenue. Here's a comparison of the existing DOS boundary in red and the proposed in green. DOS boundary would shift north to move more closely aligning with the conditions that existed before the South-Richmond Amendment of 2023, since the intent and goals of that amendment did not contemplate increasing DOS on vacant sites. The DOS boundary would be moved 60 feet north to its original location that existed pre-scissor. This is the second site, 381 Arbutus Avenue, which is located a few hundred feet south of Highland Boulevard. The zoning lot was previously improved with a single-family home, which was vested and built before the DOS regulations were mapped on the top of the home in 1975. However, the home has since been destroyed due to a fire, and the site is now currently vacant. So taking that site history into account, the existing DOS boundary is proposed to be to remove a 60-foot by 90-foot area, which is shown in this green circle, to allow for the previously existing structure to be replaced in kind. And the third and last DOS site is on Nottis Avenue. It includes a block of existing built townhomes, and as a result of the 2023 South-Richmond Amendment, this DOS boundary was moved 5 feet closer to the street, which is here in red, and it removed the ability for modest as-of-right enlargements or expansions of dozens of homes on this block. So therefore, the department is proposing to reset the DOS boundary back to its previous location in green and align it with the goals of home zoning relief for small properties. This proposed text amendment also includes minor editorial changes in a couple of discrete places of Article 10, Chapter 7 of the zoning resolution. The first is to remove outdated text from text maps, which is X here in red, which references maps that are available to view in person at the DCP Staten Island office. But due to changes in document retention policy and modernizing and digitization of these maps, this text no longer applies. And the second editorial change is within the zoning resolution 10764, which is the CPC authorization for future subdivision of certain plan review sites. There's two instances of this section that would be updated for this amendment, and one of them is to remove the reference to site plan requirements and retain reference to a required area plan. There's also a reference to an area of no disturbance to be included at the end of the first finding, both of which are highlighted here in yellow. On June 24, 2026, Staten Island Community Board 3 issued a conditional favorable recommendation. Their conditions were to deny 181 Bayview and 381 Arbutus due to the applicability of the city's qualifying residential site, QRS, and the amendment's potential impact on property's future development. But as an update from DCP staff clarified that after this community board submission of their vote, 381 Arbutus Avenue does not qualify as a QRS site because it's not in a transit zone. We also additionally noted that 181 Bayview does not qualify as a QRS site today, since it's not a final map street on the city map, and it's not built to a width of 75 feet or greater. The board had some concerns that this property could be a QRS site with road widening, which is currently not proposed or funded. And on July 30th, 2026, the Staten Island Borough President issued a recommendation to approve with conditions. The Borough President acknowledged that 381 Arbutus Avenue is not a QRS site, and this amendment represents a series of narrowly tailored corrections that advance the original goals of scissor without weakening the environmental protections or changing the land use framework. The conditions that the Borough President mentioned were noting that additional development along Arbutus Avenue, that corridor would not be supported without careful consideration of its cumulative effects on the infrastructure capacity, public safety, neighborhood character, and environmental resources. He also noted that this area, Arbutus Avenue corridor, has experienced significant challenges associated with limited roadway capacity, traffic congestion, aging infrastructure, drainage, and flood risk. And that protection of the environmental sensitive lands in the area should inform any future land decisions within the special district. So, in summary, this is a New York City Department of City Planning zoning text amendment seeking to modify both text maps and zoning text in Article 10, Chapter 7 of the zoning resolution. The text maps will be modified to adjust designated open space boundaries across 3 sites and remove outdated text related to document retention and storage. And zoning resolution section 10764 would be modified to clarify any submission materials and required findings. This concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. So we'll hear this at Wednesday's public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. The 9th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning text amendment and special permit in Manhattan Community District 5, and our presenter is Dylan Alwan.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
This is a pre-hearing refresher presentation for the Studio 54 Theater Rehab Bonus application, which was certified here at the CPC back on June 1st. Roundabout Theater Company is requesting a text amendment and a special permit to facilitate a theater rehabilitation bonus for the historic Studio 54 Broadway Theater in Manhattan's Community District 5. The text amendment being sought is pursuant to sections 81-744 and 81-745, and the special permit pursuant to 81-745 is being sought as amended to allow for bonus floor area generated by the listed theater to be used on-site as part of the rehabilitation, as well as transferred to a receiving site elsewhere within the theater subdistrict. On July 9th, CB5 passed a resolution recommending approval of the application with no comments by a vote of 39 in favor, none opposed, and 2 abstaining. And lastly, Manhattan Borough President also recommended approval of this application with comments underscoring the importance and his appreciation of the theater industry and a note of encouragement for the department to consider the appropriateness of increasing required contributions to the theater subdistrict fund. With that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have ahead of the applicant being here on Wednesday's public hearing.
There seem to be no questions. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll hear this at Wednesday's hearing.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The 10th item on our agenda was previously presented at the last review session of August 10th, 2026, and the hearing was continued to August 26th at the public meeting of August, was continued to August 26th at the public meeting. So, and we did that on August 12th. So no presentation today. The 11th item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for 4703 108th Street rezoning. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning map amendment, and staff believe this modification is within scope. Derek Jasmine is here to present on Zoom.
Hi, good afternoon, Commission. Next slide, please. This is a City Council modification for 4703 108th Street rezoning, a private application from 108 Realty Group, Inc. for a zoning map amendment from an R6B zoning district to an R7X C24 district, as well as a zoning text amendment to map MIH in Appendix F, located in Corona, Queens, Community District 4. Next slide, please. Here's the zoning map amendment initially approved by the Commission, which changed the existing R6B district to an R7X C24 district, fronting along the eastern side of 108th Street between 47th and 48th Avenues. City Council is proposing to modify the proposed zoning district from R7X to R7D. This modification to the zoning map amendment has been determined to be within the scope of environmental review, and that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Vice Chair?
To what extent does that impact the building envelope?
That's a great question. It would reduce the maximum building height from 145 to 125 feet, and that reduces the total maximum FAR from 6.0 to 5.6.
Approximately how many units is the reduction?
So that would lead to a reduction in dwelling unit. There are 119 total dwelling units in the initial proposed development. That would reduce by 8 units to 111, of which 2 would be income restricted.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no further questions, I'd like to request by assent approval to send a scope determination letter to the City Council. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will send the letter to the City Council.
Thank you. The 12th item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for 200 Kent Avenue rezoning. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning text amendment, removing MIH option 2. Staff believe this modification is within scope.
Sorry, I'd like to request an assent by voice vote to send a scope determination letter to the City Council. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We will send a letter to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Future votes for consideration on Wednesday, August 26th. Staff have prepared reports for 13527 Sapphire Street rezoning. Mary Charlotte Gitlin is on Zoom to present.
Great, good afternoon. The Department of City Planning staff finds the applicant's request for a zoning map amendment from an R4 zoning district to an R6A zoning district and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map MIH options 1 and 2 at 13527 Sapphire Street appropriate. And these actions will facilitate the development of a new 6-story residential building with 268 dwelling units, 67 of which would be income restricted pursuant to MIH option 1. The R6A district would encourage new development consistent with land use trends in the area, notably the recently mapped R6A district directly north of the project area, while including much needed new income restricted housing on a largely vacant development site. The new building would deliver housing opportunity near Linden Boulevard, a wide, major Brooklyn-Queens corridor with retail and community facility amenities nearby. The new building design would incorporate flood-resilient construction standards and on-site stormwater management, and will be supported by future infrastructure upgrades facilitated by HPD's Jewel Streets neighborhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, staff have also prepared reports on 10805 68th Road rezoning, and Dylan Jasmine is on Zoom to present.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Good afternoon. The Department of City Planning finds the applicant's request for a zoning map amendment from an R12A zoning district to an R7A district, as well as a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2, located at 10805 68th Road as appropriate. Approval of these actions would provide approximately 33 new dwelling units, including 8 permanently income-restricted units, to the Forest Hills neighborhood in Queens Community District 6. The proposed density at this location is appropriate as it fronts 108th Street, an 80-foot wide street, and is in close proximity to a variety of transit options, including the E, M, F, and R subway lines, the LARR, and multiple bus routes. The proposed community facility use for an established neighborhood daycare is also appropriate as it would serve the needs of the local community. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For post-hearing follow-ups, 112 Queens Boulevard rezoning and 1455 Coney Island Avenue rezoning will be presented at the next review session. And with that, we don't have any other business before the commission today.
Thank you. This review session is ended. Thank you.
Thank you. The time is 3:01.